Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. A little rushed. I don't know what's going on with my internet. I pay the bill on time, and they don't seem to care. So, Mediacom and Big Brother government are all pretty much the same. I don't know what to tell you, folks. I'm going to make this relatively quick. I'll get to my thanks at the end. You guys know how to get a hold of me if you want coffee, if you want merchandise. I'm still shilling for myself. We're going to have a very interesting conversation tonight. We've got at least 4 others that are going to be joining me. One of them is a guest that's been on before. His name is Brian Warfield. You guys remember him from a few weeks back. We talked about pulling the inner city and greater Minnesota together and having a conversation about the things that unite us, conservative to, Republican to Democrat to, maybe moderate leftist. There's not a lot that's going to unite us with the hard left. And there's quite frankly not a lot that's going to unite us with the hard right. And by hard right, I mean people that like most of us just wouldn't want to hang out with, quite frankly. I say most because there's somebody out there would hang out with just about anybody. But anyway, we're going to be bringing people in one by one and having a full round table. But the first thing that I want to do, and I warned him I was going to do this a little bit just before the show started, I'm going to bring in Chaz Neal. And the reason I'm bringing in Chaz is because we have a history. And in the history that we have, really, I mean, it goes back a lot longer than 2 years, let's be frank. But our reconnection has kind of come up over the last two and a half years because Chaz and I found ourselves on diametrically opposed sides of the lockdown argument. And for those of you who are watching and paying attention, and those of you who have never watched my content before, we do not refer to that particular virus as that virus by name. We call it the COOF, because when we call it anything other than the COOF, the powers that be in the regime of YouTube like to take my content down. So during the COOF pandemic, Chaz and I found ourselves on opposite sides of the argument, and I was trying to orchestrate a tete-a-tete, if you will, between Chaz and Chad Raftall Redbeard, as many know him, and we were never able to get that to happen. And so when I had Brian on, there was this Chaz guy in the chat that was commenting and saying, "Hey, wow, I really like this." And I'm going, well, that's kind of the same name. So what the heck is going on here? So without any further ado, Chaz, hello, sir.
Oh, hello. How you doing?
I've been worse. I've been better. We have a history going back several years that might relate to my former career.
Yes, and I think a lot of people maybe didn't really know that.
Yeah,
maybe
well,
with
I
my
just put it
criminal
out on
record.
blast now. I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't think
No,
it's
and
something that I don't think it's something that we need to. In fact, I think honestly, I think it's something that helps the conversation.
it is, honestly, because you knew me during a time where I'm not the same person as I am today. And a lot of people like to categorize me as a thug or a criminal. And honestly, a lot of what I used to do, I call out today. I've been threatened, trying to be intimidated, harassed by wannabe people that are out there selling fentanyl to our kids, people that are out here supposed to be fighting for the good fight and that look like me and still threaten me. So I'm not the same individual, and some people do notice that, especially like my probation officer, who is a very um strong advocate for me as well.
Yeah, it's that's nice to hear, because the system, as many people have heard me say, especially for Black folk in the state of Minnesota, but anybody within that criminal class, the system is set up to fail. It is set up to keep you enslaved. It just
Yes.
is. It's like, I had a white kid when I was working for the sheriff's office, came up to me, he was to come back one day from a plea hearing. He's like, "Hey man, I took a plea," and I'm like, "You were looking at some pretty hefty charges. What kind of plea did you take?" And he's like,
Mm.
I don't have to go to prison." I'm like, "Oh yeah, how long are you going to be on probation?" He says, 20 years. I said, "Bro, you're going to prison." You
Right,
know?
right.
He's like,
On
"Why?
an
What? How? Why
installment
would you say that?"
plan.
I said, "It's all part of the plan, man. They're going to snag you on
Right,
something. You are going to go back to running with the crowd that you shouldn't." And they know that. They
right.
got you by the short hairs for a very long time. But we got reacquainted, if you, if you will, during the kerfuffle between you and Redbeard, and I tried my darndest to get you guys to connect, to have a moderated conversation. I knew it wouldn't go like perfectly, because I'm going to be honest with you, you were coming off as pretty hard left, like you were aligning yourself with Antifa and the hardcore, like the really hardcore BLM movement that was all like burn it all down, all cops are bastards, and white folk all need to die. And I'm just like, you were there. And so
Right, 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 right.
when you were in that stream chatting while Brian and I were talking, I was like, oh hell, this is not going to go well. But you're not even there anymore.
No,
You've even shifted away from that.
yes, I have, and thank you for pointing that out because my growth has been. See, I've been honestly, I feel like awoken, and um, I feel really bad because a lot of the people that I opposed, and see, I was led to dislike these people without even really knowing them. With Chad Raftall or Becky, and the crazy thing, I'm probably gonna get a lot of backlash for this. And honestly, this is my truth, and it is the truth. Uh, Black Lives Matter, they don't really care about actual black lives. They only care about black lives that are profitable. Um, as you can see in the world, George Floyd, Minneapolis still is not the same. Dante Wright, and then we have other cases of Kobe Heisler, or we might have a Amir Locke, a Dalal Aid, or a Winston Smith that are there's questions to it, but we don't ever get the answers, you know. And so why is one black life worth more than another black life? And then we even have the babies. I'm wearing Trinity, Trinity Rain. We had Anaya Allen, LaDavion Garrett, and honestly, a lot of this is where all of this formulated into with Marvin, Laverne Turner. He's going to be on here tonight. Me and him did not see eye to eye, and I was led to believe that he was a sellout. In all honesty, this was a man that was out there for his community, but because we didn't see eye to eye on certain topics, I was led to believe that he was a sellout, that he didn't like his own people. So really, for me, the wake up is seeing it in the community and seeing who really cares and who really doesn't.
Well, it's funny because I did a video a few weeks back when uh, I can't remember her name, the mother of Dante Wright,
Katie Wright.
Katie Wright, stopped to live stream a high risk felony stopped up
Yes.
in that neck of the woods, and I broke it down and said, look, she may have made a bad decision about where she parked and where she chose to operate from, but the cop was completely out of line. And I'll tell you what, I took a lot of flack for that. And I've continued to take a lot of flack from supposedly conservative people because my perspective has changed a lot. And it was changing while I was working for the sheriff's office, in the sense of I stopped parking in those, Hy-Vee has those hero parking spots. And I stopped parking in those because even as a veteran, I'm like, I don't want to be called a hero. And quite frankly, if anybody wants to put the label of hero on there after the last 2.5 years of everybody and their brother being called a hero for simply showing up to work, then the phrase hero means nothing anymore.
Right.
And I don't think a person's heroic just for putting on a badge, putting on a uniform, strapping on a gun, a taser, or getting into the back of a rescue unit or an ambulance and going out and doing the job that you're hired to do. Heroism requires a certain amount of facing your fear, and in a high risk situation that could mean severe death or bodily harm or death for you, and you continue to do it anyway. And simply
Right.
showing up to work every day, no matter what your job might be, doesn't make you a hero. And so I've faced probably as much pushback, if not more, and I've lost my career over
Right.
it. So because I've stood on my ethics and my principles, not perfectly, I make mistakes constantly. But you brought up Laverne, but one of the reasons that we connected was because of this man right here, Laverne.
Mr.
Or I mean Brian, excuse me. You
Mr.
can't.
Warfield.
Like, I'm a white guy, I can't tell anybody apart. So Brian, I'm not getting any audio from you. And I got Marcus laughing already. So, Brian, I'm not getting audio, bro. I can't hear you. Oh, he's mad at me. All right, well, we'll do this. There you go. Marcus, introduce Marcus, right?
Yes.
Thanks for coming on, because I know that we would probably be considered on opposite ends of the spectrum, at least at one point. But I know that part of this roundtable was a reality that guys like you and Chaz in particular are feeling alienated and ignored by both sides of the argument, both the DFL and the GOP in Minnesota. And
Yeah.
and the DFL almost takes black folk, especially a certain segment of the black folk in the Twin Cities, for granted.
Yeah.
They kind of, they've always voted for us. They're going to continue to vote for us. So we don't really have to do anything. We don't even have to make promises anymore. They're going to just keep voting.
Exactly. We don't hold them up to their policy, what they're really about. That's what the DFL been doing to us for decades. They would use our struggles, our victimization, anybody of people of color. And granted, we vote Democrat, and we look at the inner city in which we vote. We see a lot of money going around, passed around different places, various groups. You can see the change. And what's the problem? The problem is, see, the politicians know what they're doing. See what I'm saying? They know the gameplay. Why change the play? If every time you run the same play and you throw a touchdown, and every time you do the same play, you hit the touchdown, why would you change your play up? And that's what the Democrats been doing to us black folks. And you can't blame the politicians. You got to blame the black people for not waking our dumb ass up. You see what I'm saying? If we ain't gonna wait to allow these politicians to come in our neighborhoods and our communities around election time and tell us all these great little promises they're going to do for us, they get in office. Remember, there's a secret agenda. You know what I'm saying? Every state got a secret agenda. And I guarantee you, nothing on there has nothing to do with public safety, any solutions concerning the violence in our community, no answers towards why the babies got bullets in their head. And we're sitting here walking around feeling like we're held hostage in our own community. And who do we blame? We got to blame the ones we elected in office.
Let me ask you this, Marcus. Do you think that part of that too, not is it just blaming the people that are elected, but is the black community, and I hate that term because I hate that, I just like I hate the term black culture, just like there's no such thing as an amorphous white culture. There's no such thing, well, and you can't say white culture anymore because that's just evil, you know. But there's no such thing as an amorphous white culture, and there's no such thing as an amorphous black culture, just like there isn't really a black community. Just because you happen to share skin tone with somebody doesn't mean you may have a lot in common with them. And I have a lot more in common with a guy like Brian, who I'm going to bring here in a second, sometimes than I do with these hard left DFLers. Like, they don't understand me. As much as I might try to have that conversation, they don't understand me. So we have nothing in common. So this idea of community and culture being amorphous, what the DFL has done especially has treated the black community in the inner cities as if they don't have a choice but to vote for the DFL.
Right.
And the Republicans, quite frankly, it's not an issue of racism, it's an issue of stupidity and laziness. They just ignore because, well, we're never going to make any inroads because they always vote DFL. And
Right.
in the Republican Party in Minnesota, even across the country, allegedly supposed to be the party of family values and the party of traditional values. And prior to the breakdown of the black family in the United States at the hands of the Democrats, by the way, the strongest family values, conservative family, like, was a black family.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because that's very important to be brought up, not only by you, but also a person of color such as me, a Negro, because of the simple fact, like in the 20, well, as a matter of fact, at the end of the 1800s, maybe 1880, black folks started to slowly leave from the Republican Party to go to the Democrat Party because they felt that, yeah, we were voting and getting representatives into office, which didn't represent us and wouldn't get any change. And I feel that's another reason why the Democrats are going to turn around, and a lot of black Democrats are going to turn around and see the bull crap, and they're going to switch over too. But you're right, we black people were conservative, and it was three things. It was the 1960 Great Society Bill. Before that, it was the integration of the military, and before that, I think it was something was done with the Great Depression that kind of like influenced black folks to like, these are the people for us because they keep giving out free. You know what I'm saying? So you're
I,
right, family.
I said on a stream I had, and if you guys haven't watched it yet, I had a gal on named Monica Perez. She is a libertarian, and she calls out the deep state and the BS that's out there. And one of the things that I said to her, something I've been saying to people for a long time, everybody praises Abraham Lincoln as this wonderful president because he ended slavery. And don't get me wrong, chattel slavery in the United States was a horrible thing. It was horrible. But Lincoln himself said, if I could save the Union without freeing a single black slave, I would do so. His goal was the preservation of the Republic, and what that produced wasn't slavery or freedom for the black slave. It was enslavement for the entire country. It enslaved the entire country to this top-down, centralized federal government that wants to manipulate, control, and manhandle all of us. And one of the things that they do with that, whether it be
That's laws.
it's laws, and they also culturally pit us against one another. Where you and I
You
should
know,
be. Go ahead, Chaz.
I'm glad you bring up a point of that because everything that you said, that it's planted to things to divide us, and it brings me back to the Willie Lynch letter. Even if people don't want to believe if it's real or not, every things that are in that letter are played out today in times that are set here to divide us between economics, gender, um, all different things. And until we can point that out, it's that's where, and I think even with when it comes with Brian, Laverne, you know, even Reverend Tim Christopher, I'm finding I have more in common with the people that I'm supposed to hate. You know what I'm
Republican.
saying? Right. You know what I'm saying? Than
Marcus
the
gonna make you
Democrats.
say it.
Right.
Marcus is gonna make you say it.
Yeah,
Say
he
it,
gonna
bro.
make me say it. Right.
Yeah, hold on, real
Right.
quick. That's what they use to divide us, bro. It shouldn't be about Republican and Democrat. It should be about what's right, what's wrong. It should be
Wrong.
about the principles of being an American: freedom of speech, right to bear arms, family first, being able to get more. When I get my paycheck, I don't want to get raped without KY jelly by the government. You feel me?
Hey,
Them-
hey, Marcus, I gotta interject. I don't want to get raped with the KY jelly. So,
Right.
so I just got to throw that out there.
Yeah,
Taxation is theft. So,
yeah.
um,
But go
so
ahead, Chad. My bad, bro.
No, I'm done.
but so Chaz, so I want to capture something that you just said there, and I want to give you an opportunity right now. I don't know who's going to see this, but
World,
since I
Craig.
since I brought it up already, there was some conflict between you and Redbeard. If you
Yes.
had an opportunity right now, if Redbeard was sitting here and watching this, or was sitting in this round table with us, what would you say to Redbeard about your view in how you feel now, and would you offer anything by way of reconciliation to Chad Raftall
You,
after the last
you,
2.5 years?
yes. I want to say that to him, everything that, especially before January 6th, I at the governor's mansion at downtown St. Paul in Rochester. I want to say to this man that I'm sorry. And I know that doesn't even cover the half of it. Um, because I know I was a pain in that man's ass, and I know there's nothing that I can and ever uh, repay but to sit here and say that as a man today that I, Chaz, Lawrence, Neil, truly do apologize. And I would hope that I know we were trying to have a conversation 2 years ago, and I would still love to have that conversation. I if you're listening, if you're out there, reach out to me, TC, anything. I would love to sit down and have a conversation, Redbeard.
You're about to make this white man cry.
Hey, you almost made me cry, and I'm a black guy.
Oh, Brian, try your audio.
How's it going? Can you hear me? Check, check.
I got. Are you on a? You got a? Are you on your laptop?
I'm on my phone.
You're on your phone. You got a headset? Bluetooth?
Well, actually, hold on a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring Laverne in if Laverne is around.
Yo,
Hey, Laverne, thank you for doing this. I still got to get you on one, just me and you. But you know, I felt this roundtable was in great need.
no, well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate you having me on, man.
No, I think you have an awful lot to offer, considering you were running for mayor. Are we still in the race?
Are we still? What do you mean? The race is over.
The-
Oh yeah.
make it, you didn't make it.
At least until 2025, but
You
it's
didn't
over.
make it out of the primaries.
Well, there's no primary with ranked choice voting.
Oh, all right.
But I came in fifth out of 17 candidates. I did pretty good for no real plan to jump in, no real resources, no real political.
5th out of 17.
Yeah.
That's a pretty darn good showing for an unknown.
I think it's encouraging. I like to think so. It was. I was satisfied with the turnout with what I had to work with.
So we've already heard tonight that people have been told to stay away from you because you're a sellout, you're not a real black man, and whatnot. Because you align yourself with a certain segment of the political movement that might not lean as far to the left as DFL in Minnesota does. Where did your more conservative traditional creds come from? Is this something you were raised with? Is this something you kind of came to on your own?
Well, real brief. I want to kind of address what my man Marcus and my man Chad said earlier, but real brief, just a little quick background on sort of my political history. I've always been. I started off as a young adult at 18, being an independent. I'm one of those individuals that even in high school and junior high, I've always been politically interested. I kept up with the times. I mean, at 12 years old, I watched the full Ollie North trials on TV. I never missed the Republican or Democratic convention on TV. As a child. But when I turned 18 as an adult, I felt like I knew enough that I could say that I was independent, because my position was watching politics and just living politics in my era at that time. My feelings was, a pox on both their houses. I always felt like the Democrats and the Republicans were full of shit, politically, on a nationwide, just in general. Like, they kind of both play on the same team when it's convenient for their power.
You mean the Uniparty?
Yeah. As I got older, I realized just on principle that I aligned more with the Republican platform than I did the Democratic platform. And by the time I was 27, 28, I was confident enough in my beliefs not to be ashamed to say that I was Republican. So, so around 28, I was like, I'm a Republican. But real quick, I just want to say to Chaz and Marcus, I think what you guys are doing needs to be complimented. You guys, you're not afraid to change. Admit that you've learned, you've grown, you've matured, you evolved, and in this day and age, that's something that's rare. And I want to commend you fellas on just being honest enough to admit the things that you have admitted to and how you've changed and how your beliefs changed. And when I heard that you guys were going to be on this podcast, I had to be on with you, because I think this proves what I've been advocating to the Republican Party for over 20 years, is that there are votes here in the inner city, and especially in the African American community, but as a party, we got to give them a reason to actually go out and cast a vote for us. And for the last 20 years, even in this election cycle, to me, it still seems like they're not heeding that advice. But that's just, that's just one little aspect of, sort of, my brand of conservatism. I've had conversations, full disclosure. Chaz and I, we've chatted, me and Marcus, we've had conversations. And I think it's important that we're on here tonight, because it shows that the so-called left and the so-called right can come together. We all want the same things. Remember when I ran into you at Milda's, Chaz, and we had a brief encounter, and I said we all want the same things.
Right.
The problem is we all have different ideas of how we get to where we want to get to, and that's where we usually come into conflict or challenges. But that's politics 101. That's civics 101. That's how it should be. We don't, we should be able to have civil conversations on how we achieve what we're trying to achieve as a community, as a neighborhood, as a city, as a state. And we've gone away from that with this super polarization of the right and the left. And I hope, us being on this podcast tonight can be an example of how we get back to civility in our politics in Minnesota.
Right.
Real shit.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right. Like, if we can come together on put politics to the side and let's walk through the middle and see what kind of change we can get. Hopefully, you know it is.
Like this,
Right?
On a personal note, I'm ecstatic. I'm super happy to hear or see that my brothers is actually, taking a look at the conservative movement and willing to and willing to take the because I don't know what TC. Let me take a second to say this.
I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. You were talking without me because I froze the heck up. I don't know. I missed it all. So it was a giant love fest for you guys.
Well, I got nothing but love for y'all. I mean, I know, chat. Go ahead, Chad. I couldn't hear Chad.
Yeah, Chaz, we lost your sound. Hold on.
Do I have sound?
Yeah. Chaz, you gotta there we go. Now Chaz,
Okay.
go ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a professional show.
Right.
And I have thousands of people behind me running everything, which is why everything goes off without a hitch. So, and by the way, I got four guys on here who have 150,000 more friends than me, and right now we got 3 people watching. So y'all need to do a better job of pushing this stuff out there. So, because I'm expecting a lot more views than this. This is ridiculous. What are you guys doing to me?
Right.
Hey, I was trying to share the live feed, but there's no way for me to share the live feed.
Oh, and now you're on your phone, so you can't share the live feed.
Right. I'm on the phone.
Yeah, now you're on your phone. So now you. Oh, what do we do? Those of you that are watching, make sure you share it out. So, as you were going to say something before I interrupted and complained about technology.
Was there who was gonna say something?
Laverne pointed out you look like you were going to say something.
Oh no, yeah, because I was gonna say I remember the first time of even seen Laverne in public, and that was when he was running for mayor. I was with Jarrell Perry, and that was over on 22nd and Ilion, and that even showed me right there of like as today as I see it as how 2 black men that really nobody really voted for, no black leaders really pushed behind, regardless if they were anti-police, pro-police, whatever it was. You really didn't see the same kind of movement behind a Jacob Frey, a Sheila, or a Kate as behind a Jarrell or even like a Laverne, and it really shocked me to see, because I even went back and looked at like how what kind of endorsements did Nakima get? So did it make a really difference of a black man versus a black woman? So, and I'm not trying to compare genders here or nothing like that,
No,
but
it's okay. We don't mind.
it just really made me really look at what do people really care about? Are they really scared of a black man getting in, regardless if he's conservative, if he's a libertarian, if he's independent? It's
Right.
if they can't silence you.
I think that one of the biggest roadblocks to the black candidate or even a black voter in the inner city right now is not the lackadaisical approach of the Republican Party. The greatest roadblock to the black voter and the black candidate in the inner city in North Minneapolis, if you want to throw that out there, is really the inherent bias, ethnic pandering of the DFL. It just
We're not going to get these things if we allow them to run the same play on it.
Marcus, we're getting some sound issues with you. I don't know if it's your baby's blocking the sound, which by the way, we'd all much rather, dote on your child there. That's definitely the best part of the stream. So,
Black fathers.
Like that matter.
yes,
And
they
that's
do, absolutely.
it's crazy because we even talk about that. You brought up earlier about family, and it's something I don't even like, Kendall, and I will blatantly say that out front. I do not like that man. Um, but he does talk about something that I do like, and that's what's missing in the black community is nuclear family. Is how do we get back to that nuclear family?
I
And
thought
what I mean is a two-parent household is getting back to do grandmama. You know what I'm saying? Of our big mama. Because before I got home, I got a whooping from the neighborhood granny, my neighborhood mama, and then I got a whooping by my mom. We need to get back to that because that's how we prevented violence over on 36th and Penn is by being big mamas and big unks and all of that is being that big brother is if you see something, you say something, you do something, and that's how we're gonna unite, and that's how we're gonna stop our babies being murdered and killed, and because we still got unsolved murders.
unsolved murder since the death of Floyd.
All right.
What was that, Marcus? You said unsolved murder since the death of George Floyd?
100 unsolved murders in Minneapolis since the death
Uh,
of
do you think that? Well, I want to be careful how I word this, not because I'm worried about it being inflammatory, but because I'm worried about how the YouTube censors will take it. Um, I I I am honestly of the mind that Black Death in the inner cities only matters when it seeks to advance an agenda of division. So black on black crime that results in black death at the hands of a black man or anybody else, any other, or a black woman, doesn't play as well as a black death in the hands of anybody in a uniform.
that is.
You know, I gotta agree with that because you're not gonna be able to sell a Trinity shirt on Amazon. You know what I'm saying? But you can sell a George Floyd. You can sell a Dante Wright. You can sell a Fred Cox. People that are in the news or that these so-called I'm gonna say it, these liberal liars uh
We
that
call
say
them leftists
like
on this channel, by the
on
way.
leftists. Okay,
There you go.
leftists. All right, leftists. Uh of let's say a Ben Crump, a Al
Laverne
Sharpton,
laughing at me.
uh that sit there and make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, but don't do nothing really for the black community. Don't do nothing for the people that they're representing.
I'm historically, um, people, government has always profited off the plight of the Black American.
Right.
Um, and it's no change today. I think the Democrats, the modern day Democrat Party, they exploit and manipulate our community. I would say psychologically and emotionally, just as equally as when we were in bondage by Democrats. Um, there, there's so many aspects to. We're talking about the Black community, and what do we do to improve our community's social status, or just eliminating crime in our communities, or educating our children better. um, the concept of the nuclear family or some type of family structure. It's really all predicated on policies and the plan, I would say, set in motion by Democrats. I want to go back a little bit when we talk about the nuclear family. I agree personally that the nuclear family is an important concept, but to be honest, our society in general is so screwed up. I mean, as a nation, we have a morality crisis. I mean, pop culture, everything that's popular and makes money is trendy, that people want to fly to or think is cool, is really contributing to the demise of our morality as a nation. And I would be, people get mad at. I'm a conservative, right? So, and I believe in nuclear family, 2-parent home, and all that good. That's how I raise that's how I live personally. But with society so messed up, marriage is a cool concept, but I'll be satisfied with the nation or with our community just on a more basic level, learning how to treat each other better. You know what I mean? Like, whether that's, man to man, woman to woman, whatever. You don't necessarily have to, be in the home with your child and your child's mother, as long as you can still have some type of healthy, productive, healthy relationship. You know what I mean? So I don't want to put because you can be married. Anybody can be married and have a terrible relationship and be abusive to their wife and kids and all that other stuff. Marriage is not the sole answer to society's problems. We got to go back a little further and just learn how to treat each other better. We got to start there.
But let's be honest. The uniparty, but especially the state, the bureaucracies and the justice system and all of that, Laverne, they don't want. They practice on the black family. They practiced on the black family. They said, what can we do to destroy the centralization of the family? And
don't give us no resources. Lock us up. We're no way of trying to help us rebuild our lives once we get out of prison. No resources, bad education, bad schooling, bad policing, bad parenting. I mean, it all plays a role. Everybody's responsible. But at the same time, they know that by the father not being in the household, that the likelihood of that child going to prison, joining the gang, or that daughter turning into a prostitute or running to the wrong guy, because of that father figure, like they did a really good job of breaking up the household. That's why it really confuses me about Black Lives Matter when they said on their thing talking about the nuclear family, and they had a picture of a black family up there, and I'm like, hold up, something don't make sense. Because if y'all talk about the nuclear family, why is y'all against black people talking at y'all more? Why y'all against black men? You know what I'm saying? Promoting conservative values. Nobody want to talk about how can we make this $5 with our community. The Democrats don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? But that's the whole thing about why we see what's going on in our community right now. And it's simple. It's how everything's been set up. It was planned. But then again, we actually realize what's going on. Here we go. Now it's like, now we the bad guy.
The welfare state in this republic has done more to hurt, harm, kill, and enslave the black man than the KKK ever did.
That's real.
And has killed far more black men and children.
Slave on it, bro. It makes perfect sense for the Democrats to use another way of holding us bondage to our mental. You know what I'm saying? But before that, they was holding us prison. But that was the Democrats. I mean, let's just keep it real. The majority of slave owners were Democrats. I mean, let's just keep it real. There's nothing to hide about that. But then there's the ones they deputized. Them the ones during the black codes when they implemented that to the black code, which gave us the penal system. which you couldn't be outside after dark. You couldn't talk loud around white men. These are the laws that they implemented.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. Most white guys are afraid of loud noises. So
I mean, all that is true, and we don't. And now that the question is, now that we're aware of that, what do we do to correct that? And I've always sort of, at least politically, when we talk about representation politically, that's why I advocate that the African American community should be supporting the Republican Party, but the key to that, the most important aspect of that is that if to understand, because I think a lot of time it gets confused on how the Democrats operate politically and how Republicans operate politically. Democrats, they claim their grassroots and all this kind of stuff, but they work from the top down. They have marching orders. If they pick you to be a candidate for office, you're going to probably get elected, but you're going to have to do what they say. Told all their party policy narratives, support all their policies on whatever level of government they're running for. Republicans operate differently. And that's kind of the hard part, I think, for African Americans to really take advantage or use. So Republicans actually operate from the grassroots up. Republicans believe in local control. So whatever part of the state or whatever, it's up to those Republicans in that area represent the needs or desires that Republican constituency is demanding, and then so for Minneapolis or Hennepin County or the 5th CD, there are Republicans in the 5th CD in Minneapolis, but they're not Republicans that can galvanize, organize, and rally support the conservative movement because they don't have it in them. They're not good candidates. They're not what will attract African Americans or inner city voters to the conservative movement. So that's and so it's hard for African Americans to rally under the conservative banner, is because in order to have any real political power, we have to use our own resources personally that we have as individuals. And to be honest with you, I'm a conservative, but I ain't got no resources, right? You know what I mean? Right. So how can we, with no resources, put up a platform, a presentation, a movement to gather more African Americans to the conservative side if we don't have the resources to do so? Now, I like to be fair and objective. So I can't blame a Republican who lives in, I don't know, Zimmerman or somewhere, somewhere outside the metro area, because they're only concerned about what their area is concerned about. But to be fair, when it's election time and you're a candidate and you're running for a statewide office or a congressional district that includes the inner city, that's when you need, that's the best opportunity for the conservative or Republicans to reach out to the African American community and invest in African American politically, but they still don't do that.
This is the chance for them.
That leaves people like Marcus and Chaz who want to see what the Republicans are all about, but Republicans ain't giving them a reason to support them. You know what I mean? So that's where a disconnect from African Americans voting conservative and not voting conservative, because we don't have the resources to organize and do that representation on our own. And the only time that's available to us is an election cycle, and we get ignored during every election cycle by Republicans. And until they change their methodology or their thinking, they're still going to lose any statewide election or any a congressional district that has an inner city, Minneapolis, St. Paul, because you have to invest as a party, as a candidate, as a movement. You have to invest in the inner cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. You have to. And
I just want everybody. Marcus is out walking around and his camera froze. I thought we were going to have to send out help, but
Hey, we are here.
Jai, when he was on, told me that the response time in the Twin Cities is like 35 minutes. So it might be easier for Brian to drive over there and pick his rear end up. What are you showing us, Marcus? Is that the memorial to the girls?
Yeah, that's Trinity's memorial.
Man, you're gonna make me that.
Yeah.
Do we have those people in custody?
Well, we have one of them.
Trinities.
One of them, the guy that was responsible.
Hey, Marcus, go back to that memorial. I mean, you don't have to take orders from me, but go back to that memorial.
I tell you
I want you to take some time with your camera showing people that.
You know, I want to say since he's about Trinity, because there's 3 babies that were shot last year: Anaya Allen, LaDavion Garrett, and Trinity Rain. And the problem for me is that all of those killers should be locked up. And what's crazy is the only reason why Trinity's killer is locked up is because the man was cheating on his baby mama and she got mad and turned him in.
That just...
Not even to do the right thing, but the fact that she was mad. And that right there shows what kind of problems we're facing in the black community.
Brian, you've been relatively silent because nobody's letting you talk. I don't know. You finally met your match with people that could talk more than you.
My mic working good?
A little better, but not much.
Okay.
Don't get too close to the camera.
Yeah, I talked to Bruce down in Sherburne. Okay, so that was pretty interesting.
That's your county.
That's my county. Yes. For those that don't know, I actually live in Sherburne County now. That's about what it takes if you want to try to find some affordable housing. You're gonna have to scour. If you think you're gonna find something in Minneapolis or Hennepin County, redlining is real, unfortunately. But so I'm in Sherburne County, and so not only am I down in Hennepin County doing calls, I've kind of got things going between Hennepin County and Sherburne County all at the same time. And that's what it's about. I mean, just to give you an idea, this is just some of the paperwork. Of the things that we do in this movement as far as trying to get these political figures to hear what we're trying to say. I mean, I can show you cards upon cards upon cards. These are all law enforcement cards. It's tough out here, and there's no voices for these victims. None at all. And the problem is we've got so much crime coming in from the suburbs into Minneapolis, and I'm seeing it. Like, I'm visually seeing it. Some of the things I've seen out here in the rural Minnesota is you're going through the same problems. There's a lot of stuff that's just being hid very, very well. The same misrepresentation that I see in Minneapolis by the DFL, I'm seeing the same misrepresentation by Republicans that are elected in their own areas. So to me, it's tit for tat. I know I've seen officials who know about illegal activity and choose to say nothing. Like serious, like this is not cool. This ain't cool no more. There's so many of us, like Marcus and Chaz, they can tell you. We got, I don't know if you guys can see that. We're picking up slugs all the time. People are shooting at us. Just trying to clean up garbage. Just trying to do just normal stuff in the community. You know, and I know even Chaz can tell you. I know he's seen a lot. I know Marcus has seen a lot. And so for me, even though we were at a certain point in time, all of us might have been on different sides of the way we were fighting, we were still basically fighting for the same thing. It's just sometimes it takes a little time to get all the garbage out the way, you know. And that's what's important. And I've always had faith in these guys. I knew, but you can't just keep on preaching to somebody. So you got to let people make their own decisions and come to their own conclusions. And I'm glad that we're all on the same table and we all want the same thing. But I do want to make one thing. This whole big movement from Republicans about law and order. When did public safety become law and order? You know, it's now it just seems like it's an over militarization of the police that they're looking for. And don't get me wrong,
we're not interested though. We're not interested in law and order, Brian. We're at all. I've been harping on this for a long time, but especially over the last year now almost. What we're dealing with is conservatives, Republicans have always been seen as being pro law enforcement, and that has become so ensconced, so enshrined in our way of life. It has become amorphous to the culture, if you will. So that now we're not allowed to question anything that law enforcement does. We're not allowed to question anything that they say or that they do, because if you do, then you're immediately cast out of the camp, and you've lost your conservative creds and your traditional creds because you now hate the cops. And I'm going like, no. And to be pro law and order used to mean follow the Constitution, do what was right by the rules of our republic. What that's turned into now is back the blue at all cost. And
exactly.
And I'm sitting here, I'm pleading with people. You've seen my videos. Chaz has watched the one. I'm pleading with people. Look, go up to the good cops, and I'm working on a series to define that. You go up to the good cops and you tell them, thank you for doing your job. But for actually doing your job, not just being there.
Right.
And I'm going to throw this out here, and like my Republican friends are going to be really mad at me, but I want the Republicans to reach out to the inner cities and get into those communities and start door knocking. If you feel like you got to go in there with a Brian or a Laverne, like Dennis Smith did, by the way, who is about as white can get. If you can go in, if Dennis Smith can go into these neighborhoods and have an impact where people know his name and know who he is and what he stands for, there's no reason that Matt Burke, a football player, a well-known football player, can't go into those neighborhoods. There's no reason that Scott Jensen can't go, because if there's any community who knows a little bit about medical oppression, I don't know, the Tuskegee Airmen, let's just start with them. If Scott Jensen can't reach into this community and say, hey, I'm about medical freedom and I'm about, reforming the criminal justice system, if he can't do that, then I don't know who can.
Here's the thing: the Republicans have a golden opportunity, man. This is a good chance for them to, man, because the Democrats continue to mess up in our community and continue to confuse things. Here's their chance. They got to live. They got to really sit us down to the table. They got to bring somebody like me to the table for real. And I know how we can get these black people. I know they're right to the crowd, right where yeah. We got to go exactly where our brothers and sisters are at, where they partying and kicking stuff right there. But we need funding for that. We ain't about to go lose our lives. We need a lot of things to go in there so we can be prepared, not for war, but to actually have them believe in what we're talking about, minus the politics, and then let them find out we conservative. You know what I'm saying? They should know we conservative and Democrat. They should know that we out here fighting for the community. They should know we want change for our community, regardless of what political affiliation you're affiliated with.
But you know what? To go even further, because Laverne brought up a good point about, and even I was watching something earlier on Twitter about Mitch McConnell said something about the conservative movement and how they're concerned more about local races because he was asked the question if they would be able to flip the Senate or the House, and he felt like they were more able to flip the House because of the simple fact that it's more localized. Uh, and that right there, and the reason why I'm going to say Kim Crockett isn't, she can't go on there and say that she doesn't believe that the 2020 election was fair and expect a black vote because what are we going to vote for if you don't even believe that it was a fair election? Because there's a lot of, I'm going to tell you right now, and here's the part that really amazes me, and I had this conversation with Reverend Tim Christopher, is there is a lot of educated black people that are misinformed but pay attention. So a Jensen can't come in there and talk about, let's say, certain things with abortion that he's been saying, or even a Kim Crockett, or another guy they've been bringing up lately, dragging on Twitter, Sean Holster, I think his name is, the guy, and Kim Crockett was just there with him. He was saying something about comparing the Holocaust and something. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was something he was trying to compare, and he got tore a new asshole. You can't come into the black community, and I'm gonna be honest because, and Marcus, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But we're out there day in and day out, and we see what. Because I'll tell you like this: I was at the Cicely Davis, um, dang it, in St. Louis Park the other night, and when I started talking about, are you gonna ask for Trump's endorsement? And I'm going to tell you right now there because well that brings in money. How did that help Lacey Johnson? It didn't. That didn't help Lacey at all because he still Lacey outgained Omar 3-1. So money isn't the issue. First of all, it's where you're getting your money from. Because if you look at it, even with Sicily, and honestly, I think she's a great woman. Uh, I honestly, with some of the stuff that I've heard, and I will publicly say this, and I've emailed her, they still haven't emailed me back, is that she's not somebody that I can stand, as a black man, that I can stand behind for the simple fact that I look at your campaign and yet I see black men in my community that rock for you, that rock for your party, but are being left out. And yet you'll go get a leftist to come to the table, but leave people that have been out here for years to the table. So to me, I
So
loyalty.
that brings
Man,
me that I'm going to interrupt there
yep.
because for one, if anybody has noticed, first of all, you guys are doing a great job of maintaining. Well, my system, I don't know what's going on. I keep disappearing on y'all. So you guys are doing a great job rocking on while I keep going. But I want to interrupt there, and I want to shift a little bit because we have beat up on the DFL especially, and the Democrats and empty promises, and now they don't even make promises. They just they just ignore y'all, like because you're not the right kind of black. So even those of you that maybe aren't conservative, you're just not the right kind of black. Um, I told Brian that the other day, and I was waiting for the ooh. I was and he's like, "No, you're right. You're right. you just." But here's the reality: the Republicans are afraid of that inner city, and they're pandering to the the soccer and hockey moms out in suburban metro area. They're pandering to them, and because they got to flip these blue strongholds to red if they want to win. And what really needs to happen is guys like Jensen and Jay Schultz and stuff have to go out into these inner city areas, because they won. I'm like, they've won Greater Minnesota. Greater Minnesota, white, black, Hispanic, and like Hispanics in Greater Minnesota are going to vote red. They've had it. They've had it because they're living in this environment out here. I'm like, dude, I am about as far southeast as you can get in Minnesota. The Hispanics are rocking Republican merch down here. The blacks are rocking Republican merch down here. The Somalis are like, I hate Joe Biden. Like, it's just what it is. But we've got to get the inner cities, and you can't win on the suburban vote. You've got to get to the inner cities where the DFL has been a stronghold, and you're not going to do it when you have your endorsed gubernatorial candidate stand on the stage at the convention and say the first thing he's going to do is pardon Kim Potter.
Right. Thank you for saying that.
Hey, I'm a conservative, and I don't agree with that position. I mean, as a conservative, that disappoints me to hear him say that.
But you guys know he said it, right? You all know he said that, right?
Yes.
I'm not putting anything out there that's going to shoot his chances, because I'm putting out breaking news. Everybody knows he said that. And even if you think it's legit, Laverne or Brian or Marcus or Chaz, even if you think that's legit, should we be talking about pardoning anybody that's been convicted when it's clear a crime happened?
Yep.
A crime happened.
Yep. I don't G for it, and I think it's I don't like it. I think it's irresponsible. I think it's politically stupid. I think it's politically disrespectful. I think it's narrow. He's appealing. He's trying to appeal.
He's
to
pandering.
He's trying to appeal to what you referred to earlier as back the blue, no matter what. When that's not going to help him or the Republican movement. And so, but I just want to take a quick second here and just
Laverne, I'm starting to believe you don't know how to do anything in a quick second.
We're saying a quick second. I love what I'm hearing from my man Chaz and Marcus. And I just want to put a quick plug out there real quick. So the next time I run for mayor, all right, if I run for mayor next time, bro, I'm gonna lean on you. All right, so
you already got it, bro. I'm gonna.
All right, I won't say no more. But
I think Chaz, he's saying he needs you to escort him around so he's safe.
No. Hey, he bigger than me, and they scared of big black men, so he should be. Hey. But I'll be out there.
I'm working on that. I think I lost about 7 pounds in summer. I'm working on that though.
So, but could Chaz or Marcus? I mean, I already know that Brian and Laverne can vote Republican. Like, I'm probably less likely to vote Republican than Brian and Laverne are. I am on the outs with the Republican Party in Minnesota. They do not like me. But I want to see what's best for the state of Minnesota.
They might not. Hey, TC. They might not like you, but they're scared of hell of me. So what? So we in the same boat, bro.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we could just get them to be scared enough of you to like me and start sharing my content, that's what. I want what's best. I want what's best for the state of Minnesota. Not white Minnesota, not black Minnesota, not Somali Minnesota, not Hmong Minnesota, not Hispanic Minnesota. I want what's best for the state of Minnesota, for we the people of the state of Minnesota. I want to flip it so it's back to being the state of Minnesota and not the state of Marxisota that it's been for the last few years. I want what's best for all of us. And I think for me, when I look around, that is not just fiscal conservatism, not just social conservatism, but values-based ideological, and I have no problems with ideological leanings, values-based ideological traditionalism that says what's best for all of us is to get the government out of our daily lives, to get the government out of telling us how we can live, where we should live, how we should spend our money, what money we can spend and where we can spend it, how much we should have of it and how much they should take of it to give to somebody else. All of that needs to go. All of that needs to go. And sadly, right now, the only path for that is a rocks and cows approach to conservatism in Minnesota that embraces the black inner city, not just the Hmong, which we know has happened, and not just the Somali, which we know has happened, but an embracing of the black inner city along with everything else to say, look, we're here to represent you not because of the color of your skin or your skin pigmentation or this amorphous culture that's there, but what's best for Minnesota is for you guys to vote for these values because we represent what's best for all of us. And I want to know what it's going to take to flip the inner city away from being blue to being at least light red.
You know what you do?
Going forward.
Republicans, like you just said, Jensen, whoever, they have to go into the inner city and they got to come in there with a money plan that's going to like get rid of all the fake Democratic, call themselves community leaders out here lying to the big people, brainwashing the people, because you already know they're the ones that's paid off, right? So they're not going to sit here and tell the people to vote against Fry when they know Fry is the one that's going to be signing them grants, or he's the one in place to make sure you can't get a grant. So they're not going to. So the Republicans got to come in with a game plan, and they got to consist of some money. Like right now, we have $9.2 billion in the surplus in Minnesota, and they can't figure out how to come together to do to see how we're going to use that money to benefit all people, all Minnesotans. You see what I'm saying? And that's a problem. That's why you shouldn't play politics when it comes to the livelihood of the American people. You shouldn't play politics because that's how that's how wars start, bro.
I'm getting goosebumps, bro. I'm not even kidding. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm listening to you, Marcus. I'm telling you right now, you're a conservative. Your street cred is gone.
My street credibility is still where it's gonna be at because all my people before I came out here in the streets, before y'all knew me, I was still somebody in the streets before this. You see what I'm saying? And I'm still in the streets. So my street credibility ain't gonna never go nowhere. As a matter of fact, just wait. The Republicans, let them put a little money behind what we're doing. It's over with.
Right.
People have got to. You've got to get this into the hands of your candidates. People, you've got to get this. I can't.
And you know what's crazy?
I have been begging people. I have been
going to them.
Brian and Laverne. I know we haven't met, but Brian knows me. Like you guys know Brian, but Brian and Laverne, you know my content. I've been begging the Republican Party to get off their ass.
Yep. Like there's so many patriotic people on North Side, it's ridiculous, and they're being ignored. Like I'm just like Marcus, just like Chaz, just like look, Laverne. Laverne's been out there for 20 years on North Side. 20 years getting ignored. 20 years. There's no reason for that. There's no reason. 20 years. And they wonder why they're not winning no elections. You're ignoring good people that have great things established already.
What did Lacey? People could say what they want about Lacey's performance at the Republican convention in May. You could say what he wanted. I'll tell you what, that brother had me in goosebumps and in tears and laughing all in a span of every one of his speeches from the platform. But the thing that he said as a running mate for Mike Murphy, the thing that he said that should have hit home With the Republican Party, the Minnesota GOP was, you all keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you keep getting the same results.
Mhm.
I mean,
That's the definition of insanity.
that's a
Right.
let me drop just a little, a little, I would say science, a little knowledge on you, a little perspective on you, TC. Um, what Lacey said is absolutely true, but the problem with Lacey's stand is he had his chance. He raised $15 million and got only the base of 23% of the fifth CD to still vote for him. So him saying that means nothing because he couldn't move the needle 1% towards conservatism with $15 million.
But here's what I'm gonna say, and I don't, Liver, and your sound's got a little wonky. Chaz, I can tell you're sitting in your car because we're getting the best picture of you we had all night. It's dark.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
But Laverne, what I want to
Should I repeat that, TC? Should I repeat that?
what I want to push on what you were saying again. I do not know what's going on. Yeah, say it again.
Riley,
Did Laverne leave? But
I'm still
to
here.
clarify, Lacey got 18.6 million in donations.
Check, check, check. You guys still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm still here too.
He said he was having technical difficulties, but money
Yeah.
ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, I sit here and I look at it. You gotta be. Lacey had a point. You know, I watched a little bit of his speech that night. You know that he gave at the convention, and he did like you. It's the same playbook. There's no difference. And right now, even in the Republican Party, there's a division in there. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like people think that because Liz Cheney came out or Mike Pence did what he was supposed to do by the Constitution. You know what I'm saying? That they did the wrong thing, and that's where it's wrong. You know what I look at that is 73% Liz Cheney the last election, and the way that she got walloped, all because of an endorsement, it shows of that there's really a discord within both parties, between the black community and between what's even right and wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't. It's crazy to me that if you look at primary, what happened during the primary, how there was such low voter turnout, and from
Right.
what there was more conservatives and Republicans, instead of worrying about going to the polls, they went out on bridges to rally for Trump. And that blew my mind. Like, that's not going to get you the change you want. You got to go hit the polls. And that, to me, that's just unreal. Like, unreal. And
Well,
from what I see, the GOP, I didn't see not one mailer, not one flyout of a sample ballot, not one let's go hit the vote, nothing. It was quiet.
well, yeah.
Quiet.
See, and that's what even. And if you looked at the primaries, there was a big difference of a turnout between the Republican Party, and then you even had Republicans that voted for Samuels
Yep.
to try to get Omar out, and it was like, um, if you wanted to, you kind of wasted your vote really in the Republican Party primary. If you wanted to, let's say maybe somebody they wanted to vote Royce, or if they wanted to vote Davis, she didn't need it, but it's like people don't. We gotta educate. especially when it comes to voter registration, party alignment, because people are even going to think in the general that they're going to be able to vote for, let's say, an Omar, but then be able to vote. Well, I guess they'll be able to though, because it's nonpartisan, regardless of their views. So let me take that statement back.
But it's it still boils down to the same thing what they're talking about. I mean, you see the Republican Party, they're preaching law and order, but who are they direct? What community are they directing that law and order at? You know what I'm saying? There's a certain community that's having some serious specific problems right here, and they're hollering law and order while we're hollering public safety. Um, Law and order is just a small piece. Um,
You know,
without
I would challenge a Jim Schultz, a Kim Crockett, if that's her name, a Jensen and Burke. Come do street team with me and Marcus. Come do street time. Come and see what happens over north, and see
yep,
what the police presence is, and and
yep,
and, and see when the even, because we're not lying when we say that it takes sometimes 45 minutes to an hour for an officer to come. And that's why when people say that, I dislike Alpha News, but uh, when they really put it out there that criminals are being going back and being able to pick up their evidence, that's true facts. That's not a narrative.
it's,
That's like actual,
yep, yep.
so
Yeah, it's a whole nother thing when you're actually on the street and you're watching what's happening.
right.
Compared to just talking about it. It's totally different, especially when you start talking to different community members that you see that are just walking about trying to live their everyday lives that are mixed up in it. Then they have no choice. You'll see them walking different directions, non-direct routes, just to avoid certain things. It shouldn't be like that. Shouldn't be like that at all.
You know,
I got
I want to say it like this because I know there's going to be a lot of conservatives watching, and I want to say this, and I hope you brothers are with me, Marcus, Laverne. When I say this, I know Marcus says I'm challenging y'all to come down here and spend a day with us. Spend a night doing street team with us. Go
I'm
out
down
in
with
these streets and go on Broadway and Lindale and see the police presence. Go
Yep.
on to 36th and Penn or go on to a Lowry. And don't go on a police ride along. Go on a neighborhood ride along with people that
Yeah.
actually live in the community where you can see the drugs, you can see the chaos that is really happening so that you don't have to see, there doesn't have to be a media narrative. You can actually see the truth in your face. So that's what I challenge. And I think it's just me and Marcus left on here now. What do you want us to do, TC? I can see you're in the chat. Can you hear me, Marcus?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty
All
good.
right. Well, he can still go. Yeah.
No, with you on that. Let's challenge our elected officials. Let's challenge all these people. They say they align with a political party that's in position of power. Challenge them. Like, forget a police ride around. Come on a Black Lives the Streets ride along.
Right. Come out here and see what really goes on. See,
Yeah.
you
Like,
know what I'm saying? Because
but
it's a
then
war zone.
we don't want them to think to come on a ride along. We need more police officers. We need them to come on a ride along to show them that we need resources.
Right. Right.
And I know
You
we,
know,
we need police. Don't get me wrong. We need them. As
right.
a matter, we're gonna need more police. Yes, we're gonna want the right ones, but also we're gonna need the right resources because no matter how many police officers you bring around, you still gonna have this problem in the inner city with lawlessness because people don't
Right.
want to sit down and come up with a dialogue, a plan. What do y'all want? Nobody never asked them what they want. You know what I'm saying? Nobody ain't came up there. How can we stop y'all from gathering in the same parking lot and go somewhere else? What do we have to do? What do y'all need? It's like, I mean,
Right.
even we gotta come out there and throw a barbecue and turn it into a community event. That'd be better, you know. But sitting there drinking in the middle of the street, but trash everywhere, shooting, that ain't gonna get it. But we can turn it into a community event. and speak them gems to them.
Then
That's
you
what I.
know what's crazy is, and it's not even what's crazy is. So TC, the host, he's having technical difficulties, but he can still chat in the comments, and he said, "What kind of resources?"
What kind of resources?
You know. So what kind? Oh dang, Mark is gone too.
Oh shit.
So I'm on resources of just seeing what's going on, of like to understand what opportunities that are being missed with education, with job opportunities, housing, and seeing understanding why people are committing crimes. Because just throwing money at an issue that you don't understand the problem, it's not gonna solve it. Because we've seen that with feeding our futures. Uh, And I'm the only one on here, and I'm not sure.
Keep
Everybody's
going.
gone.
Precisely.
But I really want to thank TC for the opportunity, and I hope people do reach out. We do have a website, Black Lives the Streets. You can check us out. Me, Marcus, Todd, Reverend Tim Christopher, Ashley Radloff. Um, I said Todd. You know, we're looking for people, and I'm gonna keep on going. But I really want people to really pay attention because livelihoods are at stake. You know, uh, there's gonna be tons of evictions coming up. The crime is gonna be at an abundant rate, and it's not just gonna be the inner cities. It's gonna be going into the outer cities: Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Maple Grove, Chanhassen, Minnetonka, Rochester. So it ain't just going to be property crime. The overdoses are going to be upticking again. He's reset it. So it's going to be a major problem, and it's not going to be police that are going to be able to handle it. It's going to be able to be the community by seeing when they see something, they say something, they do something, because police getting back to full staffing numbers is going to take a while.
So coming back in.
So that noise you hear is some teenagers
With drums.
with drums.
They're dancing.
They're dancing and somewhere, and I don't know. There's a lot of cars though. That's not.
Upstairs.
Oh, he's just practicing drums. Oh, he said he hopes.
I hope.
But I do. There is some. I wish Becky. I don't want to say there. I know her as Becky Bullhorn, but Becky, Becky Strong, Becky S. Anybody that in. We need help on the north side. We need help. Yeah, those are drums. We need help on the north side. And not just by, don't just say that you care. And I hope Cicely was really watching tonight. I hope Miss Davis was watching. I hope that Jim Schultz, I hope that Matt Burke and Scott Jensen are watching, because you have a whole community, not just the north side, but the south side. Because if you think you're going to be able to get Don Samuel, you're going to have to do more than that. Oh, now we're all back.
Oh, I'm done with technology, bro. I'm done with technology. I don't. Every single time you guys did a phenomenal job. Every single time I got a really good conversation going on, this kind of garbage happens.
Always.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a factualist.
Right.
We can't have people getting along.
You know what's
You see
crazy?
that white man? You see that white man? He talking to black folk.
I want to say this because I want to help. I want to help doing this, and I want to put a panel together of BLM, whatever they want to call themselves, and Laverne, Brian, uh, whoever they conservatives. I want to put and let's really see. I don't want no elected officials.
This
I want
president.
people that are boots on the ground. Marvin, I'm talking about a Toussaint. I'm talking about uh, whoever, Jelani, uh, Jonathan McKellen, whoever, to come to the table and let's really talk about it because y'all are out here, and I'm not, and when I'm saying y'all, I'm not talking about you, Laverne, or anybody conservative. This is for anybody that's a leftist, the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, whatever, to come to the table and let's put a panel together because I'm going to tell you right now, this is somebody that has journeyed from left to I see myself more, and I always see myself. I'll never see myself label myself politically, but I am for the people and the people only. So what I hear from the conservative side is a lot of people's side. What I hear from the leftist side is the people. So if it's all about the people, let's come to the table and put the bullshit aside and come to solutions.
Well, here's the deal. I'm just going to be brutally honest. Chaz, I appreciate what you're saying, but they're not going to listen. The left doesn't listen, and this comes from years of me pulling teeth trying to get people to talk. Like I'm not not you
Right.
per se, but I'm not like are we diametrically opposed on some things? Sure, we're diametrically opposed on some things. I don't deny that. But that doesn't mean we can't have a dialogue.
Right.
The problem is I don't remember if it was Brian or if it was Laverne. It was saying it earlier, but the DFL, the Democrats, run everything from the top down. They have this it might have been Laverne. They have this hold, and nobody does anything unless they get those marching orders from the top, and they get these talking points of here's what you have to say, here's what you have to repeat, this is what you have to do, and it actually makes them incredibly effective, very effective. The problem is that the Republicans are now starting to adopt that practice within this political structure, so that now they don't talk to anybody that's not approved. They won't cross a line. And I'm the first person to say, like, I do not want my Republican representatives voting to the left. I don't believe in that kind of compromise. Like, you want compromise, the left needs to move towards us. Because as the black community in places like Chicago and Milwaukee and Detroit and Baltimore, and I mean, you just go down the list. As the black community has learned, the Democrat leadership, when it's that top down stuff, does nothing but destroy the black family and the black community. And there again, I hate to use that term, that amorphous term.
It's facts. It's
It,
facts. I mean, you look at the administration of those local cities. Well, and what do you see? You see liberals. You don't see conservative movements. So you can't, and this is the one thing that I see so much in the community of when conservative talk comes up is, oh, they're racist. Well, what do you call the Democrats? Because they're killing our babies, not only by guns and bullets, but by drugs, homelessness, mental health. So what's worse?
I'm going to throw it out there. They target the black community with abortion. That like, you want the number one killer of black babies in this country is not drugs and guns. It's abortion.
I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, you just
That's
look at the numbers. I mean,
right.
that's just the facts currently, and I like to look at things in its totality. And historically, the founding of the Planned Parenthood abortion movement was, for those who may or may not know, was a woman by the name of Margaret something
Sanger.
Yeah.
Right.
She was a eugenicist.
Yes, and I, personally, her goal of establishing this abortion concept was totally directed towards limiting or reducing the black population in America.
She
And she's
called the
on record of
minority.
saying that.
She
And you
called
got
the
people like
minority
Hillary Clinton,
populations. She called the minority populations in the United States a weed.
and you got people like Hillary Clinton of the DFL party who consider her a role model or someone she looked up to, and it just reinforces. I mean, I say this stuff so much I get tired of repeating myself, but I mean, it's just the facts. I mean,
Welcome to my show.
the Democratic Party, if you just look at their history, man, they're the party of white supremacy. They're the party of the so-called racist America. And don't get me wrong, and people talk about the great flip or switch when the racists turn Republican. All that is bullshit. Okay, and I'm gonna say some things that I always say things that people don't like, but
Once again, welcome to my show.
The civil rights movement, the Great Society, the civil rights movement. Democrats fought against that. They fought against that hard, and I don't really support the Civil Rights Act per se, because honestly, if we put ourselves, we're in 2022, but if we put ourselves back in that time, because I wasn't born during the civil rights movement, but our rights were already in the Constitution. We didn't need a civil rights movement. We don't need that.
We just needed elected servants and unelected servants
But
to honor the Constitution.
The civil rights movement played a role in sort of reinforcing this white supremacist perspective, because we were denied our constitutional rights. So we had to create the Civil Rights Act.
We went from white supremacy and white oppression, if you want to say that, because I won't. There again, as much as I don't want to label the black community amorphously, where everybody in the black community is represented by everybody else in the black community. There were segments of the white population that were oppressors, and they're still oppressors. But ultimately, it went from a white oppressive rule to white saviorism, where the black community especially is never going to accomplish anything without whites stepping in and helping them accomplish. We're going to advance the black community through legislation. And anytime you do that, it just ends up.
That's a great way of. That's well said. That's well said. But see, that's sort of I'm giving Democrats props because whatever they plan on doing, it works. But that's the great Jedi mind trick that the Democrats played on the black community. They are the party of white supremacy, but with the civil rights movement, they were able to co-opt their past strategy of oppressing the black community to this white savior perspective. After, when I said Great Society, LBJ, passed the Civil Rights Act, but he did that with a Republican House. But he did it not because it was the right thing to do, or following, I guess, this legacy of Kennedy and this newfound, what's the word I'm looking for? Newfound era of acceptance during the 60s and 70s. They did it, in my opinion, he did it to still have sort of that control that wasn't physical bonds, but sort of more of a mental adjustment, if that makes any sense. Because I believe now the problem with the black community is that we're so conditioned and trained to believe or trust Democrats because, again, a part of the Jedi mind trick, there is racism. There is racism in this world. There is that type of that concept, that idea that does exist. So when Democrats point it out, Black people look at it like, oh, okay, at least these white people are admitting that there's racism, or there's this. So I guess they're the lesser of two evils, because at least these white people on this side acknowledge that there's racism.
Look, there's ethnic hatred in every group. There are whites that hate blacks and every other ethnicity, and there are blacks that hate whites and every other ethnicity, and there are Asians. I mean, look at some of the worst ethnic crime is perpetrated in inner city areas between Asian communities and blacks against Asians. There's a hatred out there because that's I don't care what your philosophical, spiritual perspective is. It's just man hates man.
Yeah,
we just hate man. We just absolutely hate one another.
Or we'll just find someone to hate.
Right. And
I'm going to take it a little step further, because you guys bring up very, very good points about Democrats in the Black community, but I think it's a part that what people miss is that they're trained is, you got to start, it starts with school, because I'll speak on it. A lot of it is wordplay, especially when it comes to these bills, because you see an Asian crime hate bill, but yet it only took one incident where 6 people died in Atlanta, but you don't see no Black crime hate bills. We've seen 10 get massacred in Buffalo. But yet they held in 2020, we were told, oh, get behind the Vote to Right, Freedom to Vote Act. Black people weren't even written in there. It was BIPOC. So until we can separate, and here's the part where Laverne was talking about too, going back into the 60s with the civil rights, is that was, I believe, was a great thing, but the only thing that didn't happen, it didn't separate us the way that it was supposed to. It didn't separate Black people the way that Asians are separated. It didn't separate Black people the way that Somalians, now Africans, Jamaicans, because Black people, we still are pandered to, we're lied to, and the most political, hot topic agenda item in the world, but yet we're the last ones to always get something at the table.
Well, and here's why. Because for years the Democrats have told you they're going to take care of you, and there again, I'm speaking in a very broad sense, because there are a lot of Black folk out there who just, they don't want anything to do with it anymore. But for years they've told the Black community that we're here to take care of you and we're going to rescue you, which is that white saviorism thing again. And ultimately, the Republicans keep failing because they keep saying the right things, but they're not saying it to the right people. Like, if there's a community that the Republicans should be taking for granted, it is the conservative white community. And I really don't think they should either, because my beef with the Republican Party in the state of Minnesota, especially this year, has been they know that the vast majority of Republicans probably don't agree with a lot of the positions that the rhinos or Republicans in name only in the state of Minnesota are taking, but they know that they hate walls. They know that the conservative base hates walls. So they are taking us for granted, so to speak. They're counting on us voting Republican no matter what. But the people that they really should be talking to, and this will ultimately bleed into talking to the disenfranchised white people as well within the Republican Party. And that's, I have the disenfranchised roundtable, because I'm disenfranchised too. There's nobody talking to me. There's nobody in the Republican Party that gives a damn about what TC thinks. They don't want to hear my views on how we should be addressing law enforcement, because guess what? My views on how we should be addressing law enforcement have a lot more in common with Chaz and Marcus and Laverne and Brian than they do with your average guy in Hayfield, Minnesota, or Blooming Prairie. I'm disenfranchised. They should be talking to the conservative base within these inner city areas and saying, look, we are the conservative party, and here's what we're going to do. There again, not what we're going to give you. Like, no self-respecting man, and I don't care. This is harsh. People, you may not like it, but I don't care. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, Native, First Nations, whatever. I don't give a damn. No self-respecting man wants to walk around with his hand out to a political party or an elected servant or an appointed public servant and say, give me money. I don't want to take care of myself. A self-respecting man is going to go out. He's going to find a way. He's going to make it work. And Chaz, you know this because you've been through the system. It is hard, but you don't just say, I give up. You keep fighting. And the Republican Party can say that to inner city Minnesota and across the country, really. They can say it, but they won't because we can't break that. That's just as deadly and dangerous as the DFL taking you guys for granted. And I, for one, I'm at that point now where I'm like, let's get a bunch of really conservative libertarians raised up in the state of Minnesota and go into these freaking inner city districts and start taking them. Let's flip these districts libertarian if we have to and send a message. Because I don't see what else is going to do it. You think Jacob Fry gives a damn? Jacob Fry doesn't give a damn about inner city Minneapolis. He doesn't give a damn.
Yep, he's got his eye on DC. Yep, there's already word that he's going to try to run for fifth CD next go around.
You heard that today? I've seen a lot of talk on Twitter about that today.
Yeah.
Well, well, what I would say to what TC just said is that
besides amen, there better be an amen in there, brother.
It's an amen, but I feel like that's a perfect opportunity to do another shameless plug for myself. You know, when I talk to people in the community, way before I even ran for mayor, but when I ran for mayor as well, I made an effort to tell people, hey, yeah, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, but I have my own brand of conservatism. And that may not totally align with what you as the person that I'm talking to may be used to, aware of, are familiar with. And if people in Minneapolis, people like Chaz and Marcus, would support someone like me with my own brand of conservatism, where my campaign and my brand of conservatism could be an example or an alternative to what people consider or been brainwashed to think what a Republican is. I believe that's how we change the perception of people about Republicans and conservatism. And, you know, it takes, because I don't like using the word leader, because I don't really consider myself a leader. When I speak, I'm really speaking for Laverne Turner. But if you agree with me, that's cool. If you don't, you don't. But I don't like to consider myself a leader. I think when we, as far as the Black community is concerned, when we put labels like leader on people, that gives the general, the greater electorate to be a little less active and participate in the process because they have a leader who can speak for them. I want to be a conduit where I empower people or inspire people to participate in this process of electing your own representation, and I serve you. I'm not your leader.
I appreciate what you're saying, but let me say this. All right? Because I do appreciate what you're saying. That does make you a leader. The difference between you and being a leader and being management is you're actually leading. You're going out there and you want to guide the people in the direction that they should be going because it is the right direction for them to go. And that's leadership. And there is no problem. I have no problem with, and I don't think anybody else should have a problem with somebody being a leader. The problem is that way too many people, especially within political movements, but frankly, way too many people within the community that is so often referred to as a black community, especially when it comes to Republicans or to Democrats, is they don't have leadership. They have management that barks orders at them and tells them what they should think, where they should go, what they should do, and who they should be friends with and who they should align themselves with. And Laverne, you don't want to do that. You want people to be friends with whoever they want to be friends with and vote for who they want to vote for as long as it's right. So you're a leader. You're a leader, Laverne. And don't shy away from that term. Take that term and do what a leader does and lead. Brother, you can lead Moses was a leader.
Yep.
I'm about to get my black gospel on.
Yeah.
Moses was a leader.
Yep.
Yeah, he was handpicked by God. But Laverne, you're a leader. Brian's a leader. Chaz is a leader. He's emerging as a leader. Marcus is a leader. You guys can lead. And people are going to pay attention on both sides. The people we're trying to impact up at the top, if you want to use that terminology, they're going to listen to the leadership. The people are going to follow the leaders and go, yeah, you know what? These two guys do speak for us because someone has to, because we may all have a voice, but we're not all going to be heard. And sometimes it takes that person who can be heard to demand, hear me. Hear me.
Yep.
I may not agree theologically with everything that Martin Luther King Jr. said. I don't embrace him as a Christian brother because there's a lot of things that he said that were off spiritually, according to Christianity. But I'll tell you what, the man was a leader, and that's why he got killed. He got killed because he got out of line. He got killed because he got out of line, and nobody in management positions like to hear, I have a dream that someday my children will no longer be judged by the color of their skin, and finish it with me, but by the content of their character.
I mean,
That's leadership.
I appreciate
that
the
is
sentiment.
leadership.
I'll take that as a compliment. I appreciate your sentiment. But I am a patriot. You know what I mean? And if that's my duty, if that's my patriotic duty to play that role, I won't shun from it. But I want to empower people, and that's my goal. I think when we live in a society in a country that allows the people to pick their representation for government, you have to participate. And participation is power. And unfortunately, and I understand why African Americans don't trust government, but not trusting government is the most uniquely American thing, period, to me. Our Constitution is based on not trusting the government and making sure that we have some constitutional rights that government cannot infringe on. And I want to see the Black community use our political system the way it should be used, participate, and empower themselves for whatever we, they, us believe what we want from our current representation in this country.
Right. You know what's going to
and that's my goal.
You know what's going to take for that, Laverne?
What's that?
A leader.
Yep.
I mean, I'm right. I mean, it's I want everyone to imagine, and we're coming up on 2 hours here, even with all the technical difficulties that you guys managed to walk us through. Brian was holding the fort down, I'll tell you that. You can tell he's not used to being solo on a show. He's like, now what do I do? I want people to imagine that instead of a bunch of people from rural Minnesota showing up at St. Paul Capitol building last year for Medical Freedom Rally, being predominantly white, and there again, like it's Minnesota, we're predominantly white. I mean, we just have to. That's just like the idea that somehow we have to have equal representation. You know, like if you're gonna have 5,000 white people, there'd be 5,000 black people and 5,000. That would be awesome, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. But instead of 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 predominantly white folks showing up at the Capitol for a medical freedom rally, we were able to get leaders in the inner city Minneapolis and St. Paul and other places, you know, Duluth and Rochester, to gather their folks up to say, we're not going to be oppressed by government anymore. And you guys know I prefer to say the state. We're not going to be oppressed by the state anymore, no matter what it is, whether it's bondage to the welfare state or following orders for a lockdown or whatever. You're not infringing on us anymore. And so instead of 5,000 mostly white folk, it's 20,000 people surrounding that Capitol building. Not in a violent way, not to do harm to anyone, not to destroy property. But imagine 15 to 20,000 people all showing up in that neighborhood instead of John Thompson showing up and threatening to burn down a community because he didn't like Bob Kroll.
Honestly,
imagine the impact if it was there and it was peaceful.
Honestly, that would be a great thing. But that would be great, and I wouldn't mind working towards that. I just know it's hard to get people who are, well, whatever adjective you want to use, disenfranchised, neglected, ignored, manipulated, exploited, blah, 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 as far as the political process is concerned, to get them to come rally at the Capitol.
Might be.
Because honestly, I'm in politics.
It sure wasn't hard though, and this is going to be me throwing this out here because we all know who was behind the George Floyd riots in 2020. We know who was behind it. It sure wasn't hard for the power players in that hate regime to stir people up, to bring them in from other communities from across the country, to stir up people within the community to go out and do things that if their parents were watching, they would have never done.
Yeah. They played off a lot of people's emotions, and they're good about that. They're really good about that.
And what we need to do is we need to pull at those heartstrings and use reason and logic and say, I can stand there next to a guy who's 6'8" and has red hair and a red beard, while I stand next to another guy like Chaz. I don't know how tall you are, Chaz. Who doesn't look like me, and we can stand here and say, enough oppression. It doesn't matter what color of skin it is. Enough with the oppression. Take note of us.
I think that's a message. I think that's a narrative that can inspire people to do something like that. But that's gotta be the message. That's gotta be the narrative.
Yeah, and we need a leader for that.
Are you implying something there, sir?
I'm just. I think we have that leadership.
I'm with it. Like I said, when duty calls, I'll step up. I'm with it.
But we have that leadership. We've got. I mean, we had 4 of you on here tonight. We lost Marcus, and so when you guys talk to him, tell him my apologies for the technical difficulties. We have that leadership here. We saw Chaz do what a man does and apologize and plead for a conversation with another man. We've seen Brian repeatedly, again and again and again, go out there with guys like Dennis Smith and Jai Hansen. Laverne, we saw you step up and take a run at mayor and come in with no support. Come in and take a run at mayor and get 5th. 5th
17 candidates in the field.
out of 17 candidates with no support.
Yep.
We've got the structure. If you guys would just step up, and I'm not saying you haven't, but now you step up and step out and start demanding to be heard. Who cares about the DFL anymore, quite frankly? But you guys need to start reaching out to these local candidates and say, stop pandering to the Republican base, because the Republican base out in Greater Minnesota, it's not that they don't give a damn about you, but they're not going to vote for you. I mean, so I see that all the time with these candidates in the Twin Cities areas, is a suburban and urban Minnesota. They pander to the outside. They can't vote for you. You need to get your asses off your couches and out of your campaign offices, and get into these neighborhoods. And I heard you guys saying it as I was trying to fix things. Show up for a black walk along.
Yep.
You don't need to do a ride along with the cops. First of all, take them 45 minutes to get there once they pick your ass up. But go walk these neighborhoods. We talked when Brian was on with me. We talked about, let's get a neighborhood party going. Nope, nobody wants to do it. And I got that from people. Well, we don't really need you here. I'm like, what the hell? Okay, fine. Like I'm over here going, I want to talk to you. Well, we don't really need your help. I'm like, okay, fine.
So, but I heard one thing. Tickets.
Yeah, and that's kind of the hard deal. Because we have roadblocks ourselves right here in the community when we're trying to get things done from our own people most of the time. So that's what makes it difficult. And it's about winning over hearts and minds. You know, you got to hit that one core thing that you have in common and just run with that. And that's what it's going to be about. And safety is such a huge thing, and it's a lot more than just law and order. When you start talking about food and insulin, no one's talking about insulin anymore. That used to be kind of a big thing. We kind of need insulin in these lower income communities. That's important. There's just so many things that major issues that they're not hitting on. Like, you know, and I tend to try to stay away from the abortion issue. But the fact of the matter is, we can't talk about public safety. I look at why women get abortions in the first place. And when you look at the crime stats, they like to talk about these murder stats, black on black crime and everything else, but rape is up 71%. And it's only like 25% of women even report rape in the first place. They're just got the RFID chips in the rape kit, so now women can actually try to keep track of where the rape kit is. So there's a lot more important issues that when they throw out abortion, that's a broad paintbrush, because you talk about women's rights and they're getting stepped on furiously right now. So you can't to sit there and throw out abortion. I can throw it right back to public safety again. So to me, these are all just smoke and mirror issues. And they're avoiding the real stuff, and they're avoiding North Minneapolis. And that's just where I feel that the Republicans are, if they keep on doing this, they'll never win any kind of elections. They won't.
Chaz, you still awake or?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
I didn't know if maybe you fell asleep in your car. And next thing you know, we're gonna hear this on your window. Sir, you got any ID?
Right. No, I mean, and I get what everybody, like, honestly, like, I get what everybody's talking about, and it's just crazy of how I look at all of our journeys in I could only speak for the last 2.5 years, but I look at the journeys and to see how, like, I couldn't stand, when I couldn't stand most of y'all on here, you know what I'm saying? Besides, Marcus been my brother from the beginning, and we've blossomed in this journey, but we've also blossomed into mature men that people can't see past certain things that we did during to get justice. Regardless if it was maybe a little bit radical, maybe if it was to me it was to do the right thing. I think it was a lot of just conversation.
Well, I'm thankful that you guys came on, and I'm here anytime somebody wants to, if they find somebody new that they want to talk to, or if they found somebody, that they feel like has a voice that needs to be heard, it's getting ignored. Because, well, let's be honest with you, mainstream media, the legacy media is not going to talk to you folk. As soon as you start talking about not being, a leftist or a Democrat, they're going to be like, oh, you one of them sellouts.
Right.
I mean, watch the documentary Uncle Tom on Amazon Prime. I mean,
And that's more of a compliment than a diss. And
Yeah.
people don't even realize that. That's why I call people Uncle Ruckus instead of Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Laverne, a closing thought for you?
Again, I just think that what we did here tonight, coming together, is a monumental step, example of bringing civility back to our local politics. And again, I just want to commend Marcus and Chaz on a man-to-man personal level on, just acknowledging their own evolution and growth, and willing to say, hey, I might have been wrong about this and that, or I was fooled, I was bamboozled, whatever, but now I know better and I want to do better. And I just want to encourage y'all to keep that up. We ain't got to agree on 100% of everything, but what we can agree on, let's make it happen. And let's be an example to our children, to our women. How we fix the problems in our community. Let's be the men that set the example. And I think that's what we need to do. That's the role we need to play right now, currently in this political environment. And I'm willing to say, man, if it's for righteousness and what's right, I'll stand next to you every time, bro.
Yeah,
I completely agree
I
with
stand
that.
on that.
Yep, I completely agree with that. I'm only a phone call away. I'm always ready for any of these guys if they need help. That's kind of my position. And it's things are work. I like the way that things are going, the direction that we're going. I can see a lot of good coming out of this movement, what we got going on here. But just to hit on what Laverne's saying, we gotta be the group of guys that are those role models. We got to do it, and like, and no one's perfect, but when you can admit your faults, that's a man. I mean, I wish Marvin would have tuned in, was able to log in, but I mean, he rode my butt pretty hard before the show here, and he was right, and I'm thankful for him. He got on my case, and he was completely right. And we do that for each other, and that's honestly more out of love, because we don't want to see each other mess up. We want to see each other do good. We don't want to see anybody go to jail. We want to see everybody breaking bread. Everybody can do good. We want to see TC down in the hood with us, hanging out, barbecuing. You know what I mean? Next to Jensen. And that's
yeah, you can't. No, you're trying to blow things up. They literally. I'm like, You ever put salt and pepper in a bowl of water and drop some dish soap in the middle of it?
Remember, we had Dennis Smith out there now, so and he's having a blast.
Yeah, people like Dennis.
But we're getting there. We had a conversation how we were going to get Rocks and Cows connect with the urban areas, and we've been moving forward. We're still moving on that, and this show goes to prove that. There's a lot more stuff we got working on. And we're not going to stop. We're going to keep on going. And I appreciate everybody for hanging in there and doing what they do. A real big shout out to Marcus and Chaz, because yo, they are on the street corner for real, like for real. So don't play them
Oh,
for
that's
sure. The things that they do out there, at all. And so even with all the people the media will play things certain way. And they'll always like to put the worst of the worst, and they catch you at your worst and never show you at your best. So I give props to those two, man, because y'all hung in there, man. I mean, people were getting at you, and you're still moving forward.
I'll
That's the model.
I'll tell you. I spent almost 13 years working for the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, and there were days I walked out of there and I'm like, why am I doing this? I keep seeing the same faces over and over and over again. Keep seeing these ugly mugs making these same ugly decisions constantly over and over and over again. Yeah, and knowing that a lot of people hated me for the fact of the kind of job that I did. And when my employer came after me for my content, that's it. My content, my political views, my worldview philosophy, and finally started to make overtures about getting rid of me in the sense of trying to make me go away, and knowing that they weren't going to be able to fire me outright, and finally saying, well, what can we do to pay you off to leave? I knew that going back was going to be impossible, because I knew I was never going to be safe, because they would hound me until the day I died. And I realized then that there's a certain amount of physical danger involved in the kind of work that I was doing, and Chaz can attest to that. But the psychological and philosophical danger of knowing that your employer hates you and is looking to take you out no matter what. I couldn't ever go back into that environment, and it has been a dark time over the last year of me trying to figure out my place in the world. Now I'm not doing what I used to love to do, and I keep running into people, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, that say to me, and this is not me propping myself up. I'm making a point that you were one of the good ones, and having people say you actually made a difference, and me being able to look at them and say, and you've changed. It's not just me that's changed. It's because I'm not that much different than what I was then. Some of my views have modified some, but I'm not. But what I see is I see people like Chaz has changed. They've changed. They have changed because they have stopped buying. And Chaz, this is respect, because it takes a lot. It takes a man to recognize when he needs to change. Instead of buying the line that you are black and therefore you're going to be downtrodden and you might have a criminal conviction, so therefore you're never going to be anything other than a black convict the rest of your life. It takes a man to step up out of that and say, yeah, I might be a convict and I might be black, but I'm more than that. I am a human being and a member of this republic, and I'm damn sure not going to let you take any more away from me than what you already have. And that's why these kind of conversations are so incredibly important. So, Chaz, major props to you for being willing to do this and to say the things that you said, and to continue to go out there and stand on them street corners and reach out to people and say, we don't have to live like this anymore. We can demand a change, and we can affect that change by being united, not based on our skin pigmentation, but based on our values. And I will back you guys up. I will back your play on this every day for the rest of my life. I am with you guys on this. I am not afraid to speak out on the behalf of anybody who's willing to say, this is our republic and we're taking it back.
That's what's up. And I appreciate you, TC, because honestly, first of all, when people say, now I've heard this, when people say, Department of Corrections, and I know I've got people that are in that field as well, that they're not real cops. You guys are like the first line of criminal reform. You know what I mean? The relationships that you can actually develop on inside like that, that's one of those things that I feel that's where the investment needs to be made at. We don't talk about reform, and how to help a person's character, even when they're in jail, they still need to feel like a human. You got to be able to treat them like a human. And I really think that Olmsted County lost out with you. And they're less of an office.
I wasn't all that. Trust me.
Hey, every man counts, man. Every man counts. Every man counts. I'm looking at you now. So
yeah, flat broke and can't even afford to drive up there for a barbecue.
Man, you go up on one side.
Welcome to my world, bruh.
Well, I'm living in my car, so that's the benefits when you speak up too much and you don't have financial stability. Is yeah, you get left out in the cold. So
yeah.
Well,
so
I appreciate all you men, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you guys carrying the conversation while I was experiencing technical difficulties. Like I said, it's just funny how when I finally get a good combo going with a bunch of people who shouldn't be getting along, how all of a sudden everything just magically stops working.
Yeah.
You guys go, get out of here, get back to your families, you get back to what you were doing.
Have a great one.
All right, you
Chad,
guys have
thank you so much. You guys have a blessed. Peace out, brothers. I'm not gonna keep this going any longer. It's already been 2 hours and basically 20 minutes. We had technical difficulties. I'm exhausted. Stuff my face with something else and maybe head to bed at a decent time for once. I would really appreciate if you guys don't share anything else that I like. If you never super thank me and my content, this would be the one, because when you do things like the super thanks and share it and like it, it does push it up in the algorithm. And I want people to hear this. If you know a Republican, if you know a candidate for office that needs to hear this conversation, if you know somebody who's currently a public servant, cop, anybody in law enforcement, anybody sitting in the House or the Senate, anybody running for office, they need to watch this. They'll door knock right now. They'll make phone calls. They'll show up at events and speak, and they'll want to be heard, but they need to hear. They need to hear. Conservative Republicans in the state of Minnesota need to hear that there are people in the inner city who want to align with them, but they have got to feel like they matter. And the Minnesota GOP has got to do something to get into these communities and stop saying, well, we're doing. No, you're not. Because I'm talking to the people who are on the street every day and they're not in their communities. And it's not because they're racist. It's because they're idiots. And they don't need to go in there to be heard. They need to go in there to hear. I'm sick and tired of candidates for public office thinking they need to be heard. I don't give a damn about what you say. I want to see what you're going to do. I want to see what you're going to do. And if a guy like Marcus can have his views begin to change, and if a guy like Chaz can change his views, and Laverne can stand strong in the face of the onslaught of hatred for him for not being the right kind of black, and Brian can stand strong in the onslaught in the face of not being the right kind of black, then I think that the Republican Party owes them a voice, owes them all a voice. And they have a very short window of time to make that difference. If they continue to ignore them and they lose, they deserve it, and I will laugh at them. Thank you to all of my Subscribe fans. If you are supporters, please head over to Subscribe if you haven't yet, and join. I got a $3 entry level, but more than that, reach out to to Chaz and Marcus and Brian and Laverne and find out if there's needs up there, because what they need is far more important than what I need. They're the key to saving this republic if we would just open our eyes. So thank you to my supporters and fans on Subscribe. Thank you to my supporters like Arden Sales Group and Larry and Sarah and Marzook and Barry and his wife, or Tim and his wife, the Barrys, and the others over on Subscribe. Once again, like, comment, share. If you want us to know you've seen this and you want to say thank you, send $2 on Super Thanks. It helps, because it does. It honestly drives it up in the algorithm, and this is the conversation that we need people to see. All of my rants by myself are fine. This is the conversation we need people to see. Till next time, my friends, fight for your freedoms. They are yours. Fight for your liberties, because they are yours. And Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems on a go. All systems on a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at